I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this as Christians or not, but today we're going to talk about the importance of buts. Big ones. If you feel like your stories are done, but you feel like they're lacking meaning or purpose, or readers just aren't connecting with them, there's a good chance that you are suffering from and then storytelling. And then storytelling is when one scene happens after another, but there's nothing to causally link them together. You don't need this scene to lead into this scene, but it's just a bunch of random events that occur together. Middle grade and early reader books are particularly susceptible to this. A good exception, though, is Mary Pope Osborne, who wrote the Magic Treehouse stories. She's very good at having a causal relationship. One thing happens, and this leads naturally into the next thing that happens for a purpose and a reason. And that's likely the reason that if you think back on things you read in your childhood, you can probably remember your favorite Magic Treehouse book. You can probably remember some of those plots, but a lot of the other C-spot run type stuff that you read has disappeared from your memory. Even big budget movies can fall into this trap. Literary fiction and dramas are particularly susceptible to it. A good test to run on your stories is if you remove a scene, does it change anything? Is it the same story, just with fewer events? Consider this story. Tom and Jerry are mowing their neighbor's lawn together. And then they go to a baseball game. And then they get a ride home from a stranger. Through the story, Tom discovers that Jerry is as close as a brother. So there, we have a semblance of a story. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Tom even has an internal conflict. There could be tension and there could be stakes, for instance, how they got home from the baseball game, but it's not very compelling. Simply by forcing ourselves to inject words like but and therefore into the transitions, we can automatically make it stronger. I first heard Matt Parker and Trey Stone talking about this. They're the creators of South Park. And they were talking about the importance of injecting but and therefore into your outline. However, I want to add one word to that: despite. If we can connect our scenes with these transition words, the story is automatically going to become stronger and it's going to connect more meaningfully with your readers. This changes the story from and then to, well, this happens. Therefore, something else happens, but they didn't know about this. Therefore, something else happens. Automatically, the story becomes that much stronger. Let's take that same story that we just used as an example and tie it together with these transition words instead. Tom and Jerry mow their neighbor's lawn together. Therefore, they have enough money and they go to a baseball game. But Tom is hungry and he spends too much of his money on the concession stand. Therefore, they can't afford their bus ticket home. But a man overhears their predicament and offers them a ride home. Despite their apprehensions about riding home with a stranger, he doesn't murder them and they arrive home safely. We have essentially the same story, but by forcing myself to conjoin the ideas, the scenes, with words like but, therefore, and despite, it forces me to bring causality and it forces me to bring more depth to the scene. We're naturally achieving a deeper story with higher stakes, a greater sense of cohesion, and therefore clearer messaging, simply by ensuring that all of the scenes are related to each other. So you can do this in the beginning of your story when you're outlining by forcing yourself to place those words between your scenes and see if they make sense. However, you can also just write your story. You can just throw it on the page and then in hindsight, go back, look at the events and see if they're causally related. See if you made a list of the events. Could you inject therefore, but, and despite effectively into that list of events? And then you can revise to make sure that those words make sense. If what you're writing feels like a complete story, but it lacks meaning or purpose, or it's just not connecting with readers, you might be suffering from and then storytelling. Your solution is therefore, despite, and a couple big buts. You know what my problem is right now? I'm all alone. One of the best ways to improve your work as a writer is with other people. That's why at the company, we're always doing things like critique groups and online courses that connect you with other people and contests and challenges. So if you're serious about becoming a better writer, get around some people that are on the same trajectory. Hop over to writers.company, become a member today. Let's do this together.